I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're starting in 3, 2, 1.
It's better.
It is.
I like that.
Wow, what a change of pace.
It is a change.
But you got the live sign on though.
We do.
It's not a live
y'all
sign.
Can't mess with
it's a
me.
live sign.
I mean, I
Live.
can roll
That's a
with
great,
whatever
that's a
y'all want to
great,
do.
That's it.
I mean, live lively. Let's go.
Live. There it is. We're live.
I'm excited about today, Lanny.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's Toxie. This is a walk.
Chill is in the air. Yeah,
it felt great
first
this
time.
morning.
Coach, everybody's getting.
Today's November 21st, maybe, and it's the first time that we've it actually is fall.
Did we get any frost?
Getting
anywhere?
towards winter.
Yeah, there was
Tomorrow we're
frost
getting-
out.
It was. Did you see some?
I saw frost on all the north-facing slopes on the way to work.
There you
Roofs.
Going to be a little bit too much breeze last night for a hard frost. We were at 31 tonight. Going to be a hard frost.
Would that be a killing frost?
It'll be a killing frost
Get
tonight.
ready.
I
The
think.
leaves are coming down.
When you think Dudley, most things at 30 in a hard frost.
Oh, yeah.
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 All right, so let me just kind of set the table. So we got Dudley sitting here. Dudley, your earphones look like they're not fitting your.
Well, somebody
so,
broke them and then duct taped them back together.
You know, that's
but
standard procedure.
It's the end of the year. We're out
Do
of
they
budget.
work?
Lanny's
they
down
weren't.
here.
That's all that matters.
Barely.
And you got Lanny, it's a couple of days away. You're going to be taking Hayden. And
Yeah, we're gonna get some time to hunt. Hopefully next week. So pumped about that.
Yep. Looking at Toxie, he looks excited.
No, looks are deceiving.
Yeah. Got a lot going on. I'm glad you made it here.
Working like I'm killing ants right now.
Yeah. Then over on the guest couch, I'm looking at Mark Olis.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen that name along for many, many years. You've been a part of some publications in the Grandview world, but now you're at one of the movers and shakers at Moultrie.
Yeah. I've been there at Pradco for over 6 years now. Prior to that was a editor on various magazines with the Grandview publication. So yes, sir. Been doing it a while.
A guy that would call you part of Grandview when you were editor, I don't know, Bobby, you need to rethink that. This was the man at Grandview.
The man.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Dan, thank you for putting me back in my place there. Dan, what is you've had a little company over there.
You're a part of something, right?
The only deal, I took such a hard shot from you last night or yesterday in that meeting. I got to claw my way back. So
It wasn't that hard. It was just speaking the truth.
no, it was a hard shot.
So we got Dan Moultrie. Everybody probably recognizes his laugh
In voice.
and voice, but I'm looking around the room. You got an old companion shirt on. That
How much
I like that.
I like the soft ones.
that
Me too.
chamois.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
That chamois great stuff.
We got. Let me just make sure y'all know. Mac's over here. Mac will be fact checking everything that's said in here, and occasionally, Dan, if you get off on something that isn't right, we're gonna call you out.
I am so happy you got the fact check because that fact check rolls both ways, Bobby.
It
It
can.
does.
It can. Well, what?
You got to call him
Mac is our
like
unbiased
a
fact
fable from when we were children, Tar Baby. If you hit him, you stick to him, so be careful.
Yeah. So I want to say, y'all hadn't noticed, I'm wearing a kind of a shirt that's a little tight, but I'm wearing this in honor of Dan. But
Okay.
about 20-something years ago, you let me and my father go fishing in a pond.
Topwater fishing, and y'all had an outstanding
in
morning.
July, and my dad wore this shirt that I'm wearing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's great.
And I have said, but I don't wear this shirt. Like
That's
I've
an
got it put
iconic
up.
picture of your dad. I've seen it
Yeah,
forever.
it's been in his office.
This is the best day of fishing.
I
we've
know
ever
where
done.
Bobby's grimace came from.
Didn't you tell me y'all caught over 25, over 5 that morning
It
or
was-
something? Top
yes,
order.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was incredible.
Yeah.
Never had another experience like that.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
anyway,
What time of year was it?
It was in July. It was right after
Wow,
an AFC
that's
meeting
crazy.
in
Yeah.
Birmingham, and I was able to. He drove up and we fished one
In
morning.
July.
It was incredible.
That's the most surprising thing. That'd be that or August would be my last pick for a great fishing day in ponds, especially.
It was good.
Wow, it's incredible.
Yeah, so Dan, that's a memory I have that you
That's
provided for me, and I
great.
appreciate that.
That's a
That was-
special memory.
That really is.
That
That's
is.
great.
You know what? That made my day that you had your dad that day.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't have liked it if you had just enjoyed it by yourself, but you having your dad was special.
Yeah.
Yeah,
very,
it really
very-
was. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Dad's rule.
So let's move on. Blood on the biologic. There's been a lot of deer hitting the ground. A lot of
Tis
deer.
the season.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of young hunters
you-
getting their first deer.
Yeah,
which
who
is
you
great.
got?
One of my favorite people to follow on Instagram is Hunter Green. He's always posting about game keeping and stuff. But his son Henry killed his first deer. It was a big old doe on the Chattahoochee River with a bunch of their old friends. It just looked like a good time. So congrats, Henry.
Mac, what you got?
Yeah, so you can see my buddy Miller King's son killed his first deer. His name's Sam King over in the Delta. And then I've got another one, a good friend of ours from Ducks Unlimited. His son Turner Pridgeon killed his first deer as well. Go Turner.
Did y'all notice there was a suppressor on one of those? Right, that is becoming really popular, especially for
Especially for
kids,
kids.
protecting your hearing. Danny, y'all
Dad,
using suppressors?
Dad's too.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, everybody's got suppressors, and usually, and it's good. That's good for the hearing.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's good to be able to converse, especially with your kid, before they pull the trigger. They don't have to have hearing protection, so you can actually have a discussion.
Well, it helps on recoil too.
A lot.
Absolutely.
It elongates that
100%, yeah.
My kids, I've shot suppressed for the last 8 years. Their deer they've taken had a suppress. It just makes
Yeah, you
it more
can
enjoyable.
shoot a 30-06 and it kicks like a 223. It's crazy.
It's nice.
So look, there's
They're awesome.
a little young person down around Meridian, Graham Shoemate, killed his first buck.
Come on.
And the dad sent a little note to us, and so that was awesome. So,
Yeah,
It's
it
a
was.
great picture.
is that Dan? Didn't you have some experience in?
We just came in from elk camp for a month in Colorado, and seeing that we're in Mississippi, I had 3 great Mississippi guys, Chance Harding and Jesse and Alex Neal, and they took their first mule deer and elk with us out
Come
there.
on.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I want to go.
Isn't that, yeah, come on, let's go. I'll go back. Hey, but,
Everything has a price, Lanny. I'm telling you.
hey,
Did we get an invite?
hey, but we were out there in that, and I told you yesterday in that snowstorm, worst snowstorm. Be sure and fact check this. Ever hit Colorado during that time of the year? 4 feet of snow we had. 4 foot of snow is 4 foot of snow. I thought, well, I guess it'll settle in and you can get around. 4 feet's 4 feet. It's tough. It really hampered the hunting, but it did. Animals acted a little different, but it was cool.
Cool
hunting.
experience for
Yeah,
sure.
it really was.
That's a lot of snow.
That's a lot of snow.
We got another blood on the biologic. Got Wes Boozer, Michael Boozer's son from South Carolina, got his first buck.
No,
Go Wes.
How about that? I love these kids.
It's
the
great.
Parents sending in the kids' pictures. So congratulations, guys. All right. Is there anybody else?
Well, I mean, we need to have a little diversity training here. It's like below biologic means deer. That's all.
What is it? What
I
you
mean,
got?
all y'all just thought I got blood on the biologic for my first time all fall, and I went out with Rob and killed a mess of squirrels.
Oh, look at you.
That's good.
Rob was with me. Yep, witnessed some of it.
A full mess.
Took Carsey too.
Oh, wow. That's good.
So we had a
That's
ball,
good.
and we gotta finish it out sometime now that it's cooled off enough. So I had a blast doing it.
So does that mean you're going to cook Miss Evelyn's famous
yeah,
squirrels
I
for
am.
us?
I'm gonna get it written down for all of us. And the thing, it's kind of pertinent to today that I brought it up, simply because I was sitting here thinking that's the only blood on the biologic I could, talk about
muster
that I
out.
know about or I've witnessed this year. And but we're talking about something pertinent to that too. It was so much fun to just get in the woods and see what was going on for once. And I can't wait to get out there and do it again, hopefully this weekend.
22 rifle?
Oh, yeah.
Are you shooting a suppressed?
I
22?
am. That's the way to go.
That is the way to go.
Yep.
Dan, can you imagine? Have you ever squirrel hunted with a suppressed 22?
Not with a surprise.
It is. That's what I keep talking about. Of all the things you can do suppressed, the 22.
No doubt.
With the subsonics.
Yeah, because you don't. It's not that different in performance than a regular round. It shoots hard, really.
Yeah.
Squirrel hunt. Obviously, what do you a screaming 22 is what 1,400.
Yeah, it's only a
1,400
couple
feet per
hundred
second. Yeah.
feet per second difference.
That's right. You know, to slow down something that's 2,500, 2,700 feet per second to 1,100 or 1,000 is a huge drop in performance. But with 22s, it's not. And it's amazing because I'm shooting a bolt action too. So
Oh, it's so quiet.
it is so quiet. If you're not around a bunch of trees to get a tiny bit of echo, if you're in kind of open spaces, it's literally quieter than an air gun.
Yep.
It's amazing. That anybody out there contemplating the suppressor, I'd recommend get you a 22 one first. They're amazing if you hunt with anything.
Yeah.
22. Wow.
Good advice.
Yep.
And the idea of going squirrel hunting, guys, well,
Oh, it's
sometimes
so
we
much fun.
overlook it, but it's a lot of fun to go.
Well, yeah. So the cool thing it reminded me about squirrel hunting that I love is this. Of course, I guess when you're ADD, it's hard to just sit in a stand all morning long and deer aren't moving. I can do it, and I love being in the woods. But squirrel hunting, there's just involved so many more things, so many different parts of your senses. It's like a little bit like turkey hunting. You go out and you listen, and you hear one, and you locate them with your ears, and you try to sneak up on them. It's a little different. You're not calling them in, but you do use now that and the squirrel call that y'all gave me.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wood.
Yeah, it's amazing. Great call. And, you know, I found from this is the first time I've really used it since y'all gave it to me. It's very, very effective, depending on what you use it for. A lot of times you see a squirrel and then they're not moving much, and you get up, you ease up. I mean, it's just, you know, you get a tree on them and you slip up. You try not to make any noise, and you get in position to, you know, the older you get, the shakier I am. So it's kind of about getting a good rest. And then he won't move. Well, in the past, you know, you'd finally have someone walk around the tree or pull a limb or something to make them run. And then, you know, the 22, that's kind of futile.
Good.
But with the call, they'll bark back at it, or you'll see them jump a little bit at the call and not spook. And I had a ball.
And talk
Good.
about a great way to scout for deer for next year.
Absolutely.
You know,
I saw so much stuff. And then you see what the different trees are doing, because
it's
I
like
love that too.
We're so scared to go on our property and booger up the deer hunting. But if you do, you're learning for future years, and you're learning which trees drop more often. You know, some oak trees just aren't good droppers, but squirrel hunting, you're going to learn all that. And especially if you repeat it every year, you'll get to learn your trees and which ones are good droppers.
So did you see me?
Good old calls are hard to come by. Bobby, I'm surprised you hadn't jumped in there and showed Toxie you got a new good old call.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, if I show this too much, Lanny's going to take it away from
Yeah,
me.
but Toxie may know. You talking
y'all
about
seen one of
bring the
those?
squirrels out? Pop that call, blow on that call and make it run.
Well, yeah, so this is, I don't know how long,
That's
20
been-
years ago?
Maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
Dan invented this thing called the feeder repeater.
Oh, I remember that.
Toxie, you remember this?
I
remember 'em.
But when we were out there on the ranch in Texas, and those big deer, and it may be a big 6-point to be the dominant deer, and they would keep the deer you're trying to bow kill off the feeder, and they eat all the corn. They leave. Your morning hunt's over. You're sitting there till somebody picks you up. That's why we came out with that, to try to bring them back to get a shot on that deer that you're trying to kill. But that was but there was a lot of those sold way back in the what day.
Like Texas in the day was where they've been really
Feed trained.
imprinted on
Yes.
what that sound is.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah. So let's kind of turn the conversation toward across the South and in a lot of other parts of the country. We've had some really dry months
And warm. Yeah, it's been tough. Really
and
tough.
We think that's affected some of the mass production that we've seen this year. So let's just have a group discussion about what you're hearing or what you're doing that people have done with food plots, or just how the drought has affected going into hunting season. Dan, I think you were able to use the drought to get a lot of work done on your property.
We would
this year.
thank you for y'all last year guiding me, especially Toxie Hayes. It's showing me what we needed to do on a duck pond and down in the low area, trying to get all the timber out and get all that done. The drought was great for that, but I don't know if it's the drought or they biannual. Y'all tell me, but the masting of the hardwoods, I know our sawtooth, the place we've got, had a huge acreage of sawtooths that they'd been planted, and the year before, there was so many it couldn't be eaten. This year, not one. I'm talking about not one. What causes that, Dudley?
Well, it's a lot of things. As our friend Bronson says, it depends. But I think it's a combination. So the thing about sawtooth, and sawtooth is not a red oak. It's called a Ceres oak. But much like the red oaks, it's on a 2-year cycle. So the first year, it flowers. The male pollen lands on the female flower. And it makes what a lot of folks refer to as an acornet. It's a little bitty acorn, and it's on the end of the branch. And then, but the year before, further down the branch was an acorn from the year before, and that's the one that's going to mature and drop, if that makes sense. So it's a 2-year cycle. You have little acorns and big acorns that are going to drop.
When can I start seeing the ones for next year?
Well, maybe it didn't happen.
Yeah.
All we saw were huge ones. I mean, they're
So
big.
there was something,
but-
Dudley, just like, I don't know about nationwide, but southern-wide, I've yet to have anybody tell me that they're sawtooth tree, and every time you run into someone, they know of them or have some.
Well, and it also
so we
affected a lot of the
collect.
red.
Have you found anywhere to collect this year?
No.
We got Mac found one spot.
Yeah, it was.
So it's obviously weather related because it's so widespread, and I can't help but think it had to be temperature, not drought. Certainly, this drought didn't affect it; it was already done by then.
Well, anything that was on the tree, the tree could have. We refer to it the abort.
Right.
Will shed those acorns if it gets bit by an insect or if it's really droughty and it just can't keep them on the tree. It'll shed them.
Right.
But so. We had that December
That's
super cold
blast.
front
That's what I think.
2
did it.
years ago,
Yep.
which came through right at Christmas. It went from like 70 degrees to 7 degrees all across the southeast. Well, that probably affected things. And then that next spring, we had a really late frost.
Yeah.
But I've always heard that the trees will overproduce in years following that, because they have to overproduce, because when the animals flock to them, when the acorns now come back out, to get ahead of the animals,
Well,
they have a higher production.
That's very
so
true.
that there's more seedlings
Right,
available.
but that would mean next year we'd have a big.
next.
And
Doesn't,
so
doesn't that run in a 4-year cycle?
Maybe if some weather will cooperate, we will have a bumper stress crop
Yes.
like that.
I know. I had a cousin that farmed pecans, and they would scarify the roots, and he said it would shock the trees into overproducing. They would do that.
Just the shaker.
So the same kind of deal of the acorns. Will that happen?
It absolutely can. It's very prevalent on loblolly pines in the south. You see when they have a drought year, they will just make a ton of cones. It's like, well, if I'm going to die, I need to make a bunch of babies.
That's right, survival. And I've noticed years we had an early bad drought, it triggered massive fruit production from some of these fruit trees, and to the point where even with plums and stuff, limbs were about to break with all the fruit on them, and it was that response to, dying.
Mark, you had an experience with a persimmon.
Yeah. So in central Alabama there, to your point, there wasn't a lot of persimmons that I was finding, but I found on a stretch of public land, there was a little pond, and right on the edge of that, where those roots had that moisture, that persimmon tree was loaded. So I put a camera on it. That thing's been dropping since late August and still is. Those deer are coming through there in the day, at night. And there's one big buck that comes through there. He's on a cycle, and he comes to check that tree. And if there's fruit on the ground, he'll hang out about a day, and then he's off to wherever he goes to after that. But they're hammering that tree. Raccoons, coyotes, all of them.
That's not much more attractive in this kind of year we've been in than a persimmon, because not only has there maybe less to eat and less mast around, but it's got that moisture in it too, not like a dry acorn. So they're really attracted to persimmons when the drought condition. Don't you think, Dudley?
Yeah, and in my opinion, there's no contest.
Yeah.
There's not a close second to persimmons for deer. It's a native tree.
Yep.
They can handle. They get this black spot fungus, and it doesn't seem to affect them. But deer love apples and pears and things, but a lot of those require a lot of maintenance, spraying and things to make a good crop. So having a bunch of persimmons on your place is huge.
What do you think about those great big persimmons that
the Asian persimmons?
Yeah, those. I mean, whoppers.
Absolutely. I'm kind of obsessed with them. I've grafted some. My vote on that is to keep them near the cabin for human use.
Yeah.
I never see the deer eating them like they do
Well, they
the
hang on
native
the tree.
persimmons.
They
So-
hang on the tree. So, if you want to go pick a bunch and put them on the ground, they'll get eaten. But the native one, it may drop, an older tree may drop 3,000 or 4,000 persimmons, whereas an Asian persimmon, it might drop 1 or 2 a day on a windy day.
Well,
And
sometimes they just rot on the branch. I've got one in the backyard. The limbs are just, it's full. My daughter, she'll pick one when we head to the bus stop, and they're ready right now. And last year we picked all of them at once, put them in a food blender, and then put them in a dehydrator and made fruit roll-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, those were killer.
ice
man.
cream.
Great idea.
Yep.
Now, Dudley, I told Toxie and Bobby, our chestnut trees overproduced this year. The chinky pins, I'm talking about, and the deer come up and stomp the hulls off and get to the nuts. But there was more than I've ever seen this year.
And I've heard the same despite the drought.
Yeah.
One thing about droughty conditions and chestnuts is they don't really fall free of that burr as much, and so there's a lot more stomping
Those
involved.
deer, you'd go by there and there was deer always up under when they were falling.
Like where you grow them commercially, where they're irrigated, they most often fall free of that burr.
I've seen so many, even in the neighborhood, during broad daylight, you can ride through there this fall. I've never seen it before, and there'll be deer standing, that usually spook, would not be there till nighttime under water oaks and willow oaks. And I just feel like the drought has caused such a lack of native browse of any type at all that they're really hammering what acorns we do have.
Oh, yeah.
If any.
Did you think we have many this year?
Yeah, did you see any squirrel hunting?
Yeah. But not, it's spotty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was actually the most concentration I've ran into little families of squirrels that do that. It was around, we seem to have a pretty good many swamp chestnuts.
Swamp chestnuts.
Everything
and then
loves a swamp
You
chestnut.
go up the hill,
Yeah.
the white oak crop was pretty
See,
good
I've
this
been
year.
seeing white oaks. I've got a little squirrel hunt. I've got a little tree and feist that I've been hunting with this fall. So
Awesome.
I've been out, and the white oaks seem to be pretty good.
Right. But we were talking to Todd up in Minnesota, our magazine editor, Todd Ammonrud, and he said they have the biggest crop of red oaks that he's ever seen in his entire life.
Yeah.
So it just varies.
Well, and those chestnuts, they flower later in the spring too. So,
Correct.
You talking about weather, that cold probably affected. It seems like those chestnuts may be a little more immune to that.
And they bloom really late.
Yeah, but talk a little bit about that vulnerability in the spring, Dudley, because it's not the entire spring like a heavy frost in May it won't do near as much damage as one right after they first bloom. What's the timing of that?
Gosh,
Are they
that's
all
a tough one to
species specific?
A little bit, but it's a tough one to track down. It's almost like they have a built-in antifreeze, and when they're like flushing out hard in the spring, when they're forming their catkins, the little thing that dangles down and makes the pollen, it just gets all over your porch. Those things. It's almost like they've got a built-in antifreeze that they're growing so fast that the frost doesn't seem to affect them. But it seems like if you get a hard one right before they start leafing out good, or really late, it seems to affect them more.
I grew up with the, people like Daddy and all, they just used slang terms, but it was like the trees are just fixing to bud. I can see it. And I think that's probably what you're talking about, when people can see all these buds, but they hadn't popped out yet.
Right. And it's like it's got a built-in antifreeze right around that stage. But before and after that, it can affect them.
Well, Bobby, how much do you think that affects the deer not having a lack of mass like that when they're trying to bulk carbohydrates for the rut?
It makes me worry about them. I'm not seeing as many acorns. Tyson, you're kind of giving me a little hope.
Me too,
Walking
'cause
through
I'm
the
not
woods
seeing.
a few weekends ago, and I was struggling to find any acorns. And it
the
makes me
same
worry.
way.
And
Yeah.
I'm seeing, just like what Toxie says, we see deer standing on the side of the road in the middle of the day that we
Oh,
normally
yeah.
don't
more
see.
than normal.
Right.
More
But,
than normal.
You know,
Yeah.
Dan, back to what you were talking about, you know, there's places where there aren't oak trees that grow monstrous deer.
Yeah.
That's right.
But where they're used to them, I think it's a major blow, you know, especially in areas that don't have the greatest habitat.
Right.
You know, Mark, you were talking about public land. You know, a lot of public land is like closed canopy woods, and there's not a lot of you
Summer
know,
browse.
Sunlight hitting the ground.
leafy food close to the ground, and so that can be a big hit for them.
On the years when we had the Kennedy Ranch in Texas, and the nail guy, it was pretty neat to see. Nail guy won't eat corn. They won't hardly eat anything else. So go into a planted field, but they would eat acorns. Most people don't know they ate it. When you would gut one and open up that stomach, I'm talking about they had trash bags full, like a 30-gallon trash bag full of acorns in their stomachs. That's got, in those years that those live oaks weren't falling, that's got to do something to, if they're going 4 years in a row and used to doing that and then it's cut off.
Oh, absolutely.
That's changing something biologically about that animal. There's no doubt.
Well, we listen to biologists talk about different parts, and I mean, in our world, there are acorn-driven deer herds. Their whole cycle in the year evolves, and they migrate from where we've seen it here, where there's more open, a little bit more open land. There's, you know, they got browse in the summer, and they're not going to stay in a. I mean, it's a desert in the summertime under mature hardwoods. Right. But then they migrate, especially in this area. They will migrate to where there's any kind of significant,
Like soybeans or something growing.
yeah. But in, like when the acorns fall, they were up here at least where you have a place that has a significant amount of the swamp chestnuts, and they're having a good year. It's amazing the deer had we've documented for them up to 2 miles that they go there, and I've noticed even like out where our cabin is that deer, and we have a neighbor there he's a great neighbor, and you know, but I've yet to see them send me a picture of a deer that we didn't see up around the cabin in the summer and have pictures of. And all I'm saying is he's got a bunch of big hardwoods. It's beautiful down in the bottom from there, and they migrate. They're all up around the open country, and there's even, you know, right above us some beans and stuff, and then they're going back into the bottoms in the winter as long as there's acorns. And we have a huge amount of nut-alls too, and those actually will provide on into January a lot of years.
You know, I don't want to overlook how important I think mast is in the fall and winter to turkeys.
That's a tender topic because it used to be.
I know where he's going.
Yeah, hogs have changed that completely on us. There's just, it used to be the thing early spring. Turkeys would be, you know, the best high energy food they had left was
Scratching those little bitty red
that's
oak
right. Find them
acorns
that
up.
little hard, last through the winter. You know, deer didn't get them. You know, willow oak, water oak. You know, cherry bark, whatever, small acorns. And now there's really nothing left. It's just not the same as it used to be. There's big areas of those big hardwoods on us, and it's just void of turkeys now. You know, down on the lower end of the place where Lanny shot you shot the turkey up from an landing.
Yeah. I know that spot.
That's the easiest February and early March scouting to do is going and looking for leaves kicked up everywhere where the little red oaks are.
But if you have hogs like we do, man, I think it actually, not to get off on the hogs, but I think it actually, there's so many hogs attracted to where you have acreage falling, I think it moves them out. It's changed the way things happen for us, I can say that.
So Dan, you got a new place over there somewhere in east central Alabama, I guess maybe.
It's kind of well hidden in there.
Yeah. Do you have?
That's close enough.
Close enough.
A secure and undisclosed location.
You have wild pigs over there?
No, I wish you hadn't asked me that, Bobby. I'm going to be very generous with answering. Not yet, thank goodness.
There you
And
go.
I hate that everybody else has them. Please don't send them to us.
Yeah. Are they close? Are you hearing
Well
about them?
said.
Because won't they travel those river bottoms?
I'm sure they will, and that's the way they've infiltrated everywhere else in the South. So
Like that Coosa River management
It's
area.
just
They got some over there, you know, but it's like you say, they're not too far from where we're at in East Central Alabama, but they're not on us, you know, and
don't say that.
I know, I know, I agree, but it's like you keep thinking they're coming, and I don't know what, but that's hilly country in there too. There are a lot of deep hollers and stuff like that, so I'm not really sure.
Hey, Bobby, this may be, I asked you that question about what you thought it was doing to the deer. The one deal that I saw, and this is absolute, from 35 years of South Texas, when they would produce, and it's just like in the quail in South Texas. When it's banner years, and when there's drought, there's no birds. And when there was an acorn crop, and all that's live oak down there, and that's in the white oak family, isn't it?
It is.
And you're impressed with that, aren't you, Bob? But
You got those white socks.
And,
so it'd be-
isn't that great? Why would anybody wear anything besides white socks that are comfortable?
I don't know.
I don't know, fashion maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but when those live oaks have acorns and it's groups like grapes, and there's just thousands of them under a tree, and there's always rotten acorns the next year because they never deplete them. But on the void years where there's not an acorn, when we would feed the roads, and road feeding is very popular in Texas, spreads it out. I like it. It's no disease in one area. It's a great way to, and it's a great way to see what you got. That lets you, shop and look. But when there's acorns, you can feed, and you may see 3 deer come out. And I always told you we'd show somebody 150 different rack bucks on that big ranch a day. You'd feed, you see 3 deer. When there's no acorns, every deer's on the road.
That's wild.
So if that's happening, that shows you they're lacking that food source. To me, that sets it up. That's showing you that they are used to that. They want that. They need that. They'll prefer that over anything else. But when it's not there, they're coming to the next best choice.
Oh yeah.
Is it only live oaks down there?
Mostly only
Yeah,
live
there's,
oaks. Some water oaks and some, but most of it's live oaks.
Yeah. And typically when those trees produce, they produce a lot of.
Way produce, yes.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things. They have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Moultrie was first in feeders since 1979 and is the leader in total game management. They're taking feeding to another level with the new Ranch Series line of durable and versatile feeders, perfect for both wildlife and domestic livestock. So Dudley, you can feed your goats. Whether you're a deer hunter, a hobby farmer, a land manager, or a rancher, Moultrie has you covered with several kit options, including a rotating auger, broadcast, or a gravity kit. And these feeders are 300 or 450 pounds. They're big feeders. All right, so guys, Moultrie is offering our listeners a 15% site-wide discount at MoultrieFeeders.com. Use code Mossy Oak with a capital M, Mossy Oak, at MoultrieFeeders.com and get that 15% discount. So let me ask this, Dan. So we're talking about a drought, and you've had multiple properties and tricked them out. It's kind of like, I think, something you really enjoy doing it. Have you? Is there a cost-effective way for a guy to irrigate some food plots that are back in the woods? Have you figured that out yet?
I don't know if it's cost effective. We irrigated. Do you remember when you came over and looked at the alfalfa we were growing and all that, and we had irrigated all the food plots?
Yeah, but you laid like PVC pipe irrigation.
Yes, and that was the first deal that we'd irrigated it that way, and went to the highest part of the property, put in pumps, irrigated to every food plot, and what that allowed is and I'm sure Mississippi's the same. In Alabama, the October is the driest month of the year. It's always dry. It's right around food plot time. Typically, somebody puts in a food plot in September. It sprouts. The deer start pulling them out. It hadn't had full growth. There's no more rain on it. They lose their food plot. We didn't want to get hung in that. We wanted to get ahead of the game. Plus, we were growing alfalfa. That was, I always thought, was the golden bullet, as you saw down there. I mean, it's it. You better be ready to fight pests. But it's tremendous crop in the South if you can overcome the grasses. But so we irrigated them all, and it was fantastic. You want to plant, besides fighting armyworms for having something early like that, it was great. We used the traveling sprinklers. We used the hose reels. We tried all of it. There's ways to set that up. We set up all the fish. You could, on those, a lot of the smaller traveling sprinklers, you get 150-foot range. We'd set up all the food plots 300-foot wide. So 2 different passes, you water the entire thing. Leave it on a day, it got about an inch of water. Cost effective? No. Neat to do? Yes. But it put us way ahead, and we were growing groceries for deer to put protein and antler growth during that time of the year before they shed velvet. That was why we did that.
Well, that's been a long time ago that you did that. I was hoping you might have found some other new technology that was more that could work for a guy. But
I'm sure there's ways to do it. I mean, you still have to buy the pipe and whatever.
So you drilled a well out there?
Yes, yes.
At the highest point.
We put a 30,000-gallon tank in the ground, had a well pumping into the tank, had another pump in the tank pumping out to each sector to go, and you would only water one field a day at different times and move the pumps.
And this was like 20 years ago? 15?
20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, I would not want to budget that.
But you know,
today.
people, a lot of these neighborhoods and stuff now have a irrigation lake that they fish in, and that may be the way to go, is having a big water source that you're pumping.
Well,
out of.
and every it's been a drought year, like you said, food plots. So that question always comes up, like in the Facebook forums, like, well, I'm going to go put water in my sprayer and spray.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And do the fact check. But 1 inch of rain on an acre is 27,000 gallons. I mean,
how about that?
That's exactly what we talked about last week.
You know that? That's good.
It's crazy.
So your 30,000-gallon tank can only put
right.
1 inch of water on 1 acre for 1 day.
Now,
So
remember I told you we watered 1 day at the time?
Yeah.
One
One
plot?
acre.
That's good fact
And
check.
that's the thing about it. It doesn't take a lot of rain though. If you've got some moisture, and you could, a little at a time, a half-inch worth or less, is a lot of moisture to a food plot, especially if you're keeping it from completely drying out and the subsoil drying out. Like we've had such a drought, even when we've gotten like an inch and a half rain now, the subsoil still, the farmers call it moisture meeting. Well, our moisture hadn't met in some places still around here. And we've had 2 inch plus rains after that drought, and it's still, it's crazy. Like Clay's pumped his duck hole, I think 3 times, from anywhere from 2 to maybe 6 inches of water in it in the last month.
It just soaked it up.
Bone dry.
Dan, you and Toxie earlier were talking about, taking advantage of the drought to get some timber out of the woods, get some projects done. Well, that's kind of something to think about. We're talking about irrigating. That's not going to be in reach for a lot of folks, but thinning your timber on a drought year, getting in that bottom and thinning that timber that you normally couldn't get into. Well, you're putting a lot of sunlight on the ground. You're going to have a lot of good weeds growing that can handle droughty conditions. So, thinking about those native plants, keeping our deer happy, and taking advantage of that drought to get the thinning done.
Lanny, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, actually, it was the 27,000 gallons per acre was what I was going to add.
Mark impressed us with that.
Mark nailed that. We was like, golly.
Every now and then.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Good.
It's ironic we were just talking about that, a week or 2 ago.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It is. I guess I was just hopeful, Dan, that if anybody had figured out a way to do it.
Water's water.
There's a lot of ways to get it on it. There's some. Have you seen the pumps? There's a guy in Texas named Gator pumps. Have you seen his pumps?
I have not.
I've seen it in an ad, I think.
Yeah, and they're what's called lagoon pumps. Are y'all familiar with the lagoon pump? Lagoon pumps, you put on it, they're long, they run to 30 feet long. You back down into a lagoon with a tractor, you turn on the PTO, no priming, no anything, and they can pump. I know we were pumping, we were on an application that we were going to pump 200 yards, 90 feet ahead, and they were delivering 2,000 gallons a minute. And for flooding duck ponds, for getting water to a food plot, if you had a food plot with us, and this is done out west a ton.
Oh, yeah.
They run pipes across the high side of the field. They put holes in the pipes. You flood the pipes. It naturally runs down the hill, and you irrigate the plot. That's a less expensive way to do it than making it look like a golf course. I always kind of like seeing it look like a golf course,
Yeah.
but there's other ways. I mean, you look at the way they flood sugar cane and everything else to flood it. So there's a lot of ways to get water, but it's exactly what Toxie just said. Water's water. You just got to get creative with getting it there. But there's a ton of different, every kind of submersible pump, a guy can run on a generator on his farm. It's getting water on that plant.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to plan adjacent to some pond.
Right.
Or else you're just out of luck
Yeah.
without spending a crazy amount of money.
Yeah, Lanny,
Yeah.
you look like you're fixing to say you're trying to be. You got a smart, clever comment in your mind. I can tell.
But that's always.
Lanny's gonna say you could buy a bunch of hose pipes.
Oh,
What are you fixing to
no,
say?
no. I was.
Lanny, did you? I saw you Googling. Did you find Gator pump?
I did find Gator
What do you
pumps.
think? Did you
That's a
see?
heavy-duty looking pump.
Watch that little video.
Yeah.
I have one of those PTO pumps, and it'll throw 12 out of a 12-inch hose.
Is that what we were working on yesterday?
And it, yeah, I guess y'all were. That long yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That thing was cool.
A guy built it actually here, but I mean we've been using it for 20 years. But say Jake's Pond is 3.5 acres, and I would say average depth is probably 2.5 feet, something like that, and we can fill it up in a day.
Wow.
If you got something to pump out of.
That's right.
That's right.
There's
no
a lake
water,
or a
there's no
creek,
water.
but
Yeah.
it moves way more. It's a PTO pump like you're talking about. It moves way more water than a whatever
It's
diesel or gas
for
pump.
moving volume. Of
Yes,
water.
sir.
So I got one more question. Asking for a friend. How far can you run hose pipes from a faucet?
It depends. Head, you have to figure, like, and it's the total, and you got to understand, head is vertical lift. It doesn't matter how far. Head is head. Head is vertical lift, and you have to figure the suction side and the discharge side, and that's called TDN, total dynamic head. Once you figure all that, it's really simple. But you got to have the head figured of what you're going to pump, and every pump is different. That's the reason there's a lot of different models of pumps. If you want high volume with no head, what you were just talking about, with like a lagoon pump, that's what you use. If you need head, you need high pressure pumps, and that's a different pump. But all of them, they're just pumps. It's just, but you got to be application specific. But if you start fooling with pumps, just remember you're going to have to figure when you go in to buy that pump, they're going to ask you how much head, and you're going to go, huh? But it's how much head.
You know, Dan, we've got an opening for an internship at the nursery, and it's all about irrigation.
That's right.
So you're saying you can't run water uphill?
You can
Look at
run
that.
water up
Yeah.
head,
Yeah.
but you have to figure out how
gotta
much
pump it.
head, and the hill may be this long, but it's still only this much head.
Yeah, Bobby's got a spigot at his,
Water won't
at his
run
cabin.
uphill.
Yeah, it's vertical lift. Is what
And
you
his
figure.
food plot's only a couple hundred
It's-
yards.
If hopefully your food
To-
plot
to-
is downhill from your
To
faucet.
It's
illustrate, to illustrate a little bit what he's talking about, in fighting gravity is not easy. You can do it, but it complicates the water process. So, and Gary Davis back in the day figured this one out, and we were pumping out of a pond to over the levee of a fish pond into right behind it was a place we had a small duck pond or something and it's amazing when with that big high volume 12-inch PTO pump, and here goes this big hose pipe up over the dam, probably about a 4 or 5 foot up and then back down, and it pumped it out. But it's amazing how as it got to the top, the hose kind of almost collapsed. So he thought about it, and so he ran it through the drain pipe. There's a 10-inch drain pipe in all these ponds, and so he just ran that hose into that drain pipe. So he was basically pumping straight through the levee and not up and over, more than double the volume.
Yeah. And you have to figure one other deal that comes into it, Bobby. If you're pumping a long way, there's an item called friction loss. And you can go to friction loss tables, Google friction loss tables on pipe, pull in your size of pipe, pull how far you're running it, and they'll tell you how much more pressure or head you have to run to attain the flow you want to attain. And so all that goes in. If a guy's scared of that or it blows his mind on doing it, when you go to a pump shop, ask for the application engineer. The application engineer will apply it to the formulas and tell you which pump you need.
Yeah, the more you use,
All you need to checkbook.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's
I would
go.
just say for everybody, and listen, the more you can use gravity to your
Yes.
benefit, the better.
Yeah.
As if the more you're fighting gravity, you better really have your ducks in a
But
row,
if you
as we
want
talked
water,
about.
you can pump it. There's ways to do it.
Yep.
How about that? Well, so it kind of makes me think, in a year like this, with we've had so much drought, a lot of problems. Some areas are not having a lot of mast. This is a year deer are going to hit those that where it's legal. They're going to come to feeders.
Oh,
They-
absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely they
You're
are.
going to
Historically,
be
it was
able to
always
feed.
a tougher year in Texas when you had a big acorn crop because
That's-
everybody's wanting to hunt them in and around or close to a feeder, which is the way it worked. And so those big acorn crop just spread them out everywhere.
The deer wouldn't come to those feeders like that, like as they did in a non. Well, just what we were talking about, feeding the roads, Bobby. And so, you get to that point of, do you have a regular program? What have you planted? What's come up? Do you have fruit trees planted? It's almost like when we were doing the program with Purina years ago. Good game management is more than one item. You got, how many different diverse items do you have? So you got to. We always believed in having a smorgasbord kind of effect, Bobby. And
that's smart.
And that may be feeding, it may be food plots, it may be fruit trees, but that way you cover the whole spectrum. So when you have one cog of the wheel removed like this year, it doesn't affect you as bad.
That brings up a great point Dudley's made for a long time. People will call and want to buy and do and it's becoming more and more popular. Thank goodness. I feel so good about what we've done with the nursery operation, and people are just doing more and more to their place. But they were calling and saying, "Hey, what about this? What about that? How long does it take for that to start dropping acorn? Okay, I love you. I hear about sawtooth. I want those." And so it just occurred to us at the time, and he was the first one to start talking to people about it. Diversify your tree plot.
Yeah, there is
Not
no
only
one
it's
silver
like,
bullet.
That's
just like
right.
you were talking
So let's talk about something that might start dropping acorns in September. Let's talk about something that still has some left in January. Let's diversify that. But when you diversify the species in that tree plot when you plant it, then you're also kind of drought proofing it a little bit because there's the diversity inside of that would be really, really important. So, I would say 4 to 8 species at a minimum, probably, to come up with something like that. Dudley can speak to it way better than me, but that diversity is really important in not planting just a monoculture of trees.
Right, and then you also have to look at what you already have. If you've got a bunch of mid-season croppers already, then you might want to focus on early dropping and late dropping stuff.
Yeah, we talked about the persimmon and it dropped for so long, and the deer. Just think about having a plot of trees, and you architected it, for lack of a better word, so that you've got something going on in that plot. It wouldn't be a half acre, acre or two. It doesn't have to be big, but something's going on good from even some fruit maybe all the way, say for 6 months in a row. I mean, your deer are not going to be far away from it.
No, when we were farming that alfalfa, and Bobby, you saw, I think y'all came in August or September, and it's a little below knee depth. And when there was drought time, and that alfalfa can have up to 8-foot taproot, and it's very drought tolerant, but those deer would eat it I'm talking about eat it to the ground during the drought time over the next 2 months. And I mean, there wouldn't be anything but dirt. But we're getting through that September,
Getting them through
October
the hump.
period, getting them over the hump. But it's gone after that. I mean, there's not. I was always worried it wouldn't come back the next spring, but it did. But I'm talking about eat it to the ground, but we got them through the hump. So maybe that's the answer to the question. Every year you're going to have some kind of spoke removed. How we get them through the hump?
Yeah, and be prepared for it.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to have other acorn failures. Be prepared for that.
Droughts.
Well, I mean, and honestly, I know it's bad this year, but it varies year to year. Every
Absolutely.
I mean, when we're collecting for the nursery, we offer the best we have that we can collect. But I mean, each species kind of varies year to year.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, the mast is so important. It just really is. And when you see when it's not there, it just really becomes abundantly obvious how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think we can take it for granted.
Oh, definitely. And there, like I said, I hate to keep getting stuck on hogs, but it makes it more critically important now because our deer and turkeys and everything that does utilize the mast that we love are competing with these vacuum cleaners.
Did y'all drop your trap, big pig trap last night on those pigs?
No, did not. Waiting. He said there was a dozen that had been coming in, and so I saw when I woke up, I looked at the notification pictures it took, and no more than ever 4 got in it. So they're pretty patient. They've learned over time. If you identify about how many just wait, they'll end up all getting under.
Toxie, we've had some battles in wildlife over the last 40 years that we come up with answers for, but the hog deal's critical. We need to fix that. We need to figure that one out.
My
Amen,
terminology,
brother.
I use it all the time. It's a biblical plague, like you read about the locusts. It's just about as bad. It's just, and it's so frustrating. Different geographies and locations just aren't as suitable for them, and they don't infest it like they do, especially the wetland areas. Like the drought conditions. They go to where there's still water,
And it's not just our game animals that we love to hunt and eat. I mean, it's affecting everything.
Oh,
Like,
farmers, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, farmers, but like rare plant species,
Yep.
River
they're digging
systems.
up every single beetle larvae they can that would have been turkey food, or
Yep.
all kinds of stuff they're affecting.
So Dan, you're an expert. I would consider you an expert at some of the things that you do, and you've managed a lot of properties. I think a quick question.
Yeah.
You've bought and sold multiple properties. Is the fun for you in fixing up that property after you get it fixed up? Is it kind of you're ready to move on and do it again, or
It kind of
how does
does,
your
but
mind work?
it kind of does. But I'm getting long in the tooth, and it takes a lot of energy to do it. This one will probably keep a long, long time. But the neat and Toxie got to experience this, and as long as we've been doing this, and you're to somewhat that same degree. One of the neat deals, we always get invited to places, and every farm you get to go see, just like when we came over and Toxie was showing me what he was doing with ducks and all that. The neatest deal was to go all over the United States and see all these different farms, and everybody's got little tricks and ideas. And what we tried to do was incorporate the good ones and bring them back, and then put them all together. And when you do that, then you doll up these places, and they're mega fantastic wildlife places. The fun, and I know Toxie's, I've heard him, the fun is doing that and building that.
No question.
That's really the fun. But the average guy that's out there shopping for a place, he wants it ready to go.
So there's
there's
absolutely.
There's both sides of that. Yeah.
That's the whole gamekeeper thing.
Yeah.
Doing the work.
Yeah.
Is the gift. I mean, it's
100%.
It's addictive more than the hunting is.
It is.
But I will say there's two sides of that for me. The fixing it up and maybe even the fixing it up today and take people hunting some, or fixing it up that you might sell it. I mean, that's a great way to be in real estate, is find something, fix it up, in tax-free exchange to the next. I know a lot of people that's built up a nice pieces of land because doing that and all. But for me, more and more, as I get long in the tooth, my big passion is being sure that I have the family place for generations to come. That is absolute over any dollars at all. That is my number one goal, because I've learned that a great place is like a glue for the family, like none other. Especially if you get it and you enjoy it and you go, spend time out there in nature and working on it, and the family works on it. If you're blessed enough to have some kind of structure or cabin to go stay on and that kind of thing, it becomes, in every piece is different, and it doesn't have to be, a lot of the inhibitions people have, I can't measure up to that. Well, okay, but there's a place you know, and if you can do it, to me, if you're into buying or trading land, think about it in those terms. You know, for generations to come, you could leave something for your family. And it is like the glue for the Hayes family, the real estate, the land is the glue. Yeah.
And that is.
Yeah.
All the I can't tell you how many times on every holiday,
Yes.
we'd go to the
Easter
farm.
egg hunting.
We'd go to the
Absolutely.
farm.
That's one of my best memories.
We'd go to the farms.
Thanksgiving, we'll have a table set under that big oak in front of the cabin. I mean, there'll be a big, long table. There'll be 35 or 40 people eating outside. with the
kids
blue sky.
running around
Yes,
everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. It's magic.
The sense of place.
Yes, it is.
But nothing, Bobby, replaces seeing good ideas with people. I don't care how long you've been in it. I don't care if you've been in it long as Toxin. There's still a whole lot of good ideas we get to see and to apply them to a place.
It's a good reason for you to go turkey hunting at more places.
Yeah,
So
I'm
he
looking
can
forward to
finally-
going today.
And learn.
So he can
learn more.
finally.
Hey, I invited Bobby Cole. Open invitation. Please come kill a turkey this year. No Bobby showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Oh my, Bobby, you can't. Bobby, you cannot say that.
Mac,
I find that hard to believe.
Well, you may find it, but that is the gospel.
Mac, what
The wedding
what
must
should
have
we be
had him
asking?
off track. I don't know.
I mean, I think y'all hit on a lot. I mean, we're finally getting a cold snap. How do you think that'll affect the deer movement, and what are you seeing on your cameras?
Yeah, you know what I'm seeing on my cameras? They show up at the feeders dead on time. They're hungry.
Yeah.
And the drought has affected the food plots coming up. If you've got low wet areas, you got some food plot formation. People that planted early and got lucky, got through them. The army worms this year, I guess over here in Alabama, they were at epic proportions.
They were.
Horrendous. And so that wiped a lot of people out early. So you got a combination of no mass, little food plot. I think it's important to let's supplement them a little bit, guys.
So let's both of you guys
Yeah.
are. I think y'all could probably teach us something about. Are y'all like? So let me just say this: we like to follow MSU's guidelines about feeding
Right.
corn, so we don't put down more than they can eat in about a 24-hour period. But do you have a technique? Do you like to run it 30 minutes after daylight? Or how many times are you programming your feeder to go off?
Yeah, well, so on our place where we hunt, we've got them set up. Right now, I think they go off about 6:45, 7 a.m., something like that, roundabout. And
So what's that in relation to sunrise?
ours is just a little bit probably around sunrise is typically what.
So
we've got.
maybe 30 minutes after shooting light.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. So it's, you get into your stand, calms down, and then they go off. It gets that little bit of movement and the good light. And then in the evenings, we got them going off. They're probably like an hour before, sunset or so or last light. And we don't run them, but on our place for maybe 4 to 6 seconds at most. And that throws just enough because it's an attractant. Mm-hmm. We're not supplemental feeding at that point with corn. It's a bit of an attractant. So they're set up in hunting locations, and that's how we do it. And we in Alabama, we're on the DMAP program, Deer Management Assistance Program. So we have a prescribed number of does, and those feeders are absolutely fantastic for going and being able to harvest does like you need to. I'm taking my daughter hunt. Our rifle opens this weekend. I'm taking my daughter. I can't wait. We're going to go set up at a feeder location. She's 11 years old. She wants to get a deer, and so we're going to do that.
Yeah. What about, do you have other times during the day? Do you feed at noon for a few seconds? Or?
We don't, personally.
It depends on what your tactics and what you're doing. I think there's a lot of different applications. When Dr. Causey and Dr. Striblin were at Auburn, and we were talking about if you're trying to, and in the old days it was patterning the animals. That was kind of the term you always heard. You're going to pattern this deer or pattern the animals. In Texas, they call it feed training. Let's call it what it is. That's what the state of Texas calls it. If you feed them at a certain time, kind of like Pavlov's theory of the dog, they're going to come and eat at that time. Generally, unless there's other things that interrupt that. If the rut's going on, They don't give a rip about corn. They're worried about something else. They're going to go be rutting. If there's acorns falling, they're going to go eat that. If the muscadines are falling in early September, they're going to eat the muscadines. So other things affect that, but it depends. If you look at, I would say most of the times hunters hunt. Traditional hunting in the southeast, especially, would be from daylight till probably 9 or 10 o'clock, from 4 o'clock to dark. So do you want the deer to move then? I'd probably say you ought to feed them and put it, what I always wanted to do, if you were attractant feeding and not supplemental side, if you put it on the side of the green field, you want them to migrate from the feeder and go right into the eating on your green field. And you're still accomplishing them being able to see them more during daylight hours and attain an ethical time kill. When you got free choice and they can get all they want, that's supplemental feeding. Attractant feeding is tickling. Supplemental feeding is where they have free choice and all they want. And whether you're feeding pellets, corn, whatever, you're supplemental feeding. Over at Callaway, we had those 2,000-pound protein feeders, free choice. They would go, oh my gosh, it'd break you. They'd eat so much of it, especially during the non-acorn years. So is that beneficial? Done the right way? Yeah. If you're not doing it the right way and you're not cleaning them up and the spots aren't conducive to no disease and they're not in water holes where it's going to hold disease and mud, you're not doing it the right way. Well, it's no different than anything else. You got to put in the effort to do it the right way and take care of it and do what's best for the game.
Well, that goes back to what we've talked about and heard from so many quote-unquote experts that these biologists is that you can't put the pressure on your place to support the wildlife just with food plots and feeders. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's wonderful to have them, but if that habitat management comes before all of this. Let's just be honest. And if you've done that, then that's a marvelous addition to helping. And there's no way deer, especially deer, they can't be all they can be simply from eating what you give them yourself. It's got to be the place and the carrying capacity, in managing habitat. No question. We've learned that, and I've learned that. I kind of knew that, but you hear it again and again and again and again from, researchers.
Yeah. Hunters get blamed. Hunters and wildlife people get blamed for stuff that maybe they ought not get blamed for, and a lot of it's political footballs of people that want one method over another method. You can't tell me that when farmers are fertilizing pasture, cattle farmers with chicken litter, and it spreads liceliosis, and it's deathly effective on turkeys. You can't tell me that's a normal farming practice. Now, if a wildlife guy came up with something like that, they'd say, oh, you're spreading this. That's not the intent. Now, that's happening, but how are you going to tell a guy that's got 1,000 mama cows he can't spread chicken litter on his pastures? Those are his pastures, so that kind of got to get to live together. You got a guy that's got a cornfield. It floods every year. Corn gets lodged and laid down. That corn is naturally occurring is going to get alpha toxin. Now, does the guy get blamed with that is alpha toxin a buzzword that gets blamed for a wildlife guy? If he's allowing his vehicle that delivers it to not be conducive with what ought to be done, yeah, he's blamed. But if not, was that farmer getting blamed? It's naturally occurring, and there's ways, all that needs to be conducive to wildlife if we can get it that way. But in not all cases is it's going to be able to beat that in a farm. So y'all are in a farming community over here. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and to Toxie's point, if you're doing the habitat, you only need a little bit of something as an attractant because you're going holistic.
That's right.
And that's what we do on our plate. We do the prescribed burns. We've got the areas. So, and being a part of that deer management assistance program, it's really cool because we get to see the weights of our animal, the health compared to the average in the area. And all our weights are above, the antler sizes, all those things are above the average for that area. So that helps tell you, you're doing something right out there. And like this year, man, the quail have exploded on our place. So we've never seen coveys of quail. Maybe see one or two. Now they're, you're walking in, they're flushing and scaring the crap out of you going to your deer stand and everything. I mean, it's awesome.
Per
to
toxie
see that
haze,
stuff.
that's good wildlife management. That's good habitat management.
Yeah, if you're flushing quail, then you got
You're doing something
lots
right.
of
Yeah, you're
natural
doing
food
something
for your
right.
deer too.
That's right.
And you're drought proofing your place.
And if you got quail, you got turkeys, in my opinion.
For sure.
Because
No question.
there's nothing but little bitty turkeys or great big quail.
yeah.
Yep.
So, what's this new feed hub thing? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Moultrie, we had the cameras. Dan came out with the cameras, and then they put the cellular connection in the cameras. That way you pull up your phone and you see your images. Feed Hub's the same thing. We put the cellular connection in the feeder. And before Feed Hub, you guys know you got feeders. The only way you knew what the heck was in it was you open the lid and you look down in there and you say, well, dang, I got to run to town because this is about to be out of corn, or it's out. Or you go hunting, the feeder goes off, nothing comes out. Well, that's pretty frustrating too, especially when you thought, well, I'm going to go over here and see what's coming out. So with Feed Hub, it goes right to the Moultrie mobile app. It reads your feed levels, so you know what's in the hopper. You do all your settings from there. So, you're kind of talking about the changing seasons. Maybe there's a lot of acorns, maybe there's not. More deer coming to the feeder, less deer coming. You can adjust those settings on the fly without having to be out there. So you can make sure you're not putting out too much corn, things like that. Read your battery life, all those things. So you know what's going on with your feeder, even when you're sitting on your couch at home. And if it gets a clog or something like that, it'll give you an alert saying, hey, you've got a clog in your feeder. You got to go do something about it. So it just kind of takes, like, for instance, our place is about an hour from the house. There's not really people out there through the week checking stuff. So if I open a feeder and I'm like, oh, man, we need corn. Now I got to run to town because I'm there on a Saturday. Feed store's closing at noon. So now I'm all in a rush. I've ruined my hunting because now I'm feeding or filling feeders. So it just allows you to, better manage your time. We're all busy. So it's a great way to have insight into what's going on in that feeder. And then it's also got a feed on demand option. So, where those deer are trained, you can make the feeder go off when you want to.
So Lanny doesn't have to fight me for this feeder repeating.
Hey, Bobby, let's go back to effectively being a good game manager, and you don't want corn. Let's follow Mississippi's rule again. You don't want corn left on the ground. You got a camera making a picture every day of that feeder. You see that the acorns are falling and that you got more corn left on the ground. You can adjust it from your house and never have to go to it, and you can stop the overage of corn in 1 second off the app. How about that for a good?
Yeah.
Dudley, I know you got to like that.
Yeah, that will that saves money.
Yeah, well, not only saves money, it's effective for making sure that spot is
Absolutely.
conducive for wildlife.
Well, and for properties where they run, numerous feeders, right? I mean, that saves a lot of time. I was just in South Texas and, sent a few of these out to the outfitter. He ran them. He called me before I came down there. He said, man, we've got over 100 feeders. He said, you know how much time we waste riding around, checking feeders, making sure things are right, and the time changes. So we've got a deal that's coming out. It's not out yet, but it's gonna. So if you set your feeder like we were talking about, okay, I'm gonna set it for an hour before sunset and 30 minutes before sunrise. It's going to automatically adjust that by 1 minute each day, so it stays at that time, even as the time fades.
The deer time.
Lanny and I had the biggest argument about as time change was coming. Even Rob got involved in it.
Toxie too.
I was trying to tell Lanny we got to go reset our clocks on our timers.
You don't.
And he's like,
Well, no, you don't.
Hey,
You don't.
in areas, think about this now. You hadn't thought about this, Bobby. I'm surprised you didn't jump on this. With the new product we got coming out that Mark said, if you're following game and fish regs and there's legal shooting hours and not, you can have where it self-adjusts and follows those shooting hours where you're never at illegal shooting hours because the feeder adjusted to only feed within inside those hours.
Well, and we all set our feeders out in
like to-
August, September, right? You want to start seeing what deer are out there on your cameras. But when you set that in August, and then the days get
It's
shorter,
totally different.
It's dark. You know, if you don't adjust it, it's off.
I love the
what I-
hour.
that's
I mean,
what I was
the
trying to
minute
tell
adjustment. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're trying to do it all at one time,
There-
so you know.
Well, the time change makes no difference
Yeah.
at
No.
all.
If you're feeding
No,
an
you-
hour
if you
before,
set
Time
it-
change doesn't matter.
If
Right.
you've set it for dark, let's just say, you know, I've always,
it'll be dark.
yeah, I mean, set it way further in front so that the time's actually changing about 50 seconds a day.
That's right.
And
That
so
deer-
if you add the number of days that you're really just worried about, when does it go off in relation to the sun, not your
Yes.
watch.
Not your watch.
And so does legal shooting hours.
That's right.
Deer light savings time.
Yeah, but I love arguing with Lanny. It's
Well, I love arguing
really?
with you too, Bobby.
What gave it away? So, you know, the one thing you did bring up is a fine line between, so if you've had, what's revealing in today's age, we've learned so much because of cameras and being able to look, you can even hit the video function and watch a video and stuff. But with that feeder and the ability to change it, it's just occurs to me, there's a fine line, and Mother Dan pioneered deer feeders, and he's the master at deer behavior and trying to get, you know, attract one to hunt. And there's a fine line between putting enough feed out to attract a crowd or the mature deer, or too much to where he gets used to, like, I'll just wait till after dark. There'll be plenty left over. So, you know, my point is, if you're looking at, you're able to watch this and change your feeder without being intrusive and going back in it. I mean, I can't imagine how much more effective it would actually be. Because
And
the one thing you're going to mess up quicker than anything is that mature male buck. That's the one that, you know, leaving scent and bothering is going to change things more than anything. So the fact you can do all this and never have to go back in there for such a long time is probably a game changer.
one size doesn't fit all. You're going to have a feeder on a piece of property. You got 10 feeders. Every one of them have different usage amounts. Those deer have a preferred area. They'll go, one feeder's going to get hammered, one doesn't get hammered. You can totally adjust those with never going to see it. It can be a trash can. It can be a pickle barrel. It can be a butane tank. It figures out the size, however y'all got it to do it. It figures out the size of it. You calibrate it, then it's to the ounce.
Yeah, if you
Wow.
if it's not a Moultrie feeder, you get the universal kit. You can install the cell timer into your existing spin cast motor into the housing. Some of it's a plug and play. Some of it you snip a couple wires, twist them together, and then the feed level detector goes in the lid. And so you would, on an empty feeder, you would calibrate it, and that way you've got your measurement. And then so when you fill it, it's full, and then as that goes down, it's measuring towards that calibrated distance.
Yeah, but let's just be honest with everybody out there. It works better to go ahead and get your Moultrie feeder.
That's, I was going to say, there's a lot of brand X stuff out there. We'd like rather see you in a Moultrie feeder.
Well, it's some impressive technology, and it really is. We've learned a lot.
It's brand new. Nobody has had this, Bobby. It's cutting edge. I mean, it's big time
Well, it's
cutting
pretty
edge.
much
Yeah.
could be your middle name.
Oh, I don't know
It
about
really
that.
could.
But
Those white socks.
Thank-
are-
you don't like, hey, Toxie's got on gray. What's the difference in gray and white?
Well, gray is fashion. White is like.
White's not
Oh,
fashion.
no, I thought look.
White is, when you get.
I'm just hearing Bobby Cole critique somebody about fashion.
Bobby,
Enough said.
Bobby, when you get my age, comfort is a lot more important than
Amen.
vanity.
Amen.
Toxie will cop out that, I know.
Amen.
So we've been talking about how smart he is. We've got a trivia question we picked out just for the two of you.
Oh, good.
So Mike, could we let's talk trivia here for a second.
Hey, before we do that, last time we had a trivia question.
Well,
And
here we
Dudley,
go.
and
Told
Dudley,
you- I told you. Car baby.
And Dudley, when we added to it and talked about the fishing side of the federal funds, did you ever research Dingle Johnson?
I guess I didn't.
I thought you were going to check on that. Well, that's all right. We'll approach that another day. But go
We
ahead.
did. Do you know who painted the first duck stamp?
No, who?
Dingle Johnson.
Really? Well, that's
There
where
we
it
go.
came.
We have
yeah.
stumped them already.
That's good.
Right out of the gate. We hadn't even turned Mac loose. All right.
All right, so the prize this week is something that I would like as a prize. It is a Mystery Ranch backpack.
those things. Well, I think
We've
this
got
is-
another
we-
one?
this
I
is
thought we gave the last one
this is
away.
the last one.
Okay.
They are really nice.
They never made it to my closet. None of them.
No, they are hidden in
Yeah, they didn't get them out of my closet because I never had one.
Yeah.
So the reviewer is Jay Manifold. That will be the winner this week. So the question is, you might need a cup of coffee for this one. It's a little long, but
Both of y'all, and y'all can talk amongst yourselves.
Oh, that's good.
all right. So
Can we phone a friend?
the timing of a doe's estrus cycle is controlled by genetics and a photo period. Genetics provide the blueprint for a general time frame in the photo period, the ratio of daylight and nighttime hours. Provides a stimulant that triggers changes in the release of hormones that cause her to go into estrus. A doe is typically in estrus or heat for about 24 hours, and for most of this time she is not receptive to the buck. So the buck will chase and tend to the doe until it reaches a stage of estrus where she is willing for the buck to breed her. What is this stage called? I cannot read that again. So if you have a question, I can paraphrase.
You know, there's a lot to that, and a lot's been done and seen on that. And you want me to? You got any input on this? You want me to?
Yeah,
talk
I
to
mean,
you?
I know what it is. If we
There
want
you
to
go.
say it.
Yeah, let's get it.
Mark's not
But
scared.
before
Dan.
hey, but before we say it, when those does come into estrus and the bucks are chasing them, generally, and the difference of a lot of Texas versus Alabama is you can see everything going on. So you get to be a student of watching wildlife. Generally, when we would see a buck locked down on a doe, he'd stay with her about 3 days. When you would ride the ranch, you'd see that same buck locked down on that, and he's multiple breeding her during that time period to hit that time where he's going to breed her. About 28 days later, I believe that's the right amount, if y'all fact check it.
That is.
If she didn't catch, she'll come back in again. That's right. So that's your second rut people talk about. One time we got, because of MLD tags, to hunt into February in Texas. The neatest deal about it was we got to see the third rut. Most of the time that was a yearling doe, and it's a physical aspect. Auburn has said that it was, and I've forgotten which professor it was, that it's 60 pounds or more is an average. And just like little girls, some come into their own early and some later. Same with the doe, it's physical size. During that third rut that year, all I saw was bucks chasing those yearlings, and that was the last to come in. So that's kind of sets the stage of what we're talking about in this estrus period. Now, you want to answer?
However,
Yeah, he's a long way around our question.
No. Wait, ask your question.
It's just
just the
second
answer.
and third rut does, that's crazy because you may see 13 bucks chasing a doe.
That's right.
You know?
They're not as spread out because there gets to be, hey, it's closing time. There's fewer to choose from. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
So what's the question? One more time. No,
what is the phase called?
The question.
The question, Matt. Can you just paraphrase it down to the question?
Just that last part.
What is this stage called? No. So that is the last part. But so the doe, goes into estrus for about 24 hours, and most of the time she's not receptive. So the buck's going to chase that doe and tend to that doe. But then finally the doe allows the buck to breed her. So what is that stage called?
Now you tell, and it's the same and y'all have got kennel facilities, y'all got dogs, y'all got, and the old phrase that I've heard my whole life is that she'll stand for the buck.
Finally, there's your answer.
Yeah. Mark, was that what you were going to say?
Yeah, he had it.
Of course it was.
Standing estrus.
Standing estrus.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really short time of that 24-hour period. It's really interesting, which explains a lot of behavior you see.
Bobby, you didn't think we were going to get that?
No, I figured you would get it.
No, that's not true. You thought you had it on that.
He wasn't real sure.
So that question came from Bronson Strickland over at the MSU Deer.
That
Park.
answer actually came from him, not
he
the
provided
question.
that for us. So I want to make sure.
And I hate to go all the way around, but I always want somebody who hadn't been able to see that take place in the woods of Alabama and Georgia, you may not see that whole deal that's going on.
Yeah,
but that's what's happening.
I mean,
in a thicket.
Yeah,
we've been in the
'cause
woods a lot. I hadn't seen them hoof
a
much.
huge percentage of people, I think it's higher percentage in Alabama than Mississippi, hunt deer in food plots in the afternoon. They sit there. There's a shooting house there. It's such a huge way. I know others don't, but rarely will a doe in that 24-hour period walk out in a food plot. Right. I mean, almost never. Unless
That's right.
like super cold or something. She's going somewhere and he doesn't even want her out there. So to his point, you rarely ever see it the way we hunt.
In Texas and out west, western hunting, when those mule deer rut, that mule deer doe will almost hide from that buck. She's trying to get away from him because she's not ready to stand yet. And that buck's wearing her to death.
We see a lot of whitetails around water too.
And so that's happening with the race. But when it happens, it happens.
Do you think she's playing? Do you think she's selecting this
No,
buck, or
no,
it's just
no.
whoever happens to be there?
To me, I believe it's purely a timing issue of when she'll stand. That's
There's so many variables in the wild. We've seen the research projects that indicate she would pick a deer. But that's always been in captivity when they check that. So many more variables in the wild.
To go back on that may be, it's proven that those bucks will. You see a buck with a great big rack run off a little bitty buck with a small rack. They can be same age class. Rack wins. That's supposed to be selective.
Yeah. But that big buck may be locked down with another doe, and then the yearling buck breeds this doe.
Satellite bulls, same thing.
Yeah. So we always hear about the lockdown. And is that when that buck is just, he is with her, and if she's not moving, he's not moving?
He will not leave her.
No.
For anything.
You could hit him in the head.
You can hit him in the head.
Now, the thing to remind people is the rut is not like a schedule or on my calendar is the 5th through the 10th or what. It's not. It's like a doe comes in estrus and someone's wanting to breed her. Right. That's the rut. So how many does are out there? When does that happen? So typically there's a time period when she's in that 20 in our world, she's going to a thick area and she's going to try to just keep from moving around much because she's just going to attract more and more chaos. And he's like a cutting horse trying to keep her from moving around much. And that's, so much. And then, she's not coming out in the open to eat in the green field, not doing anything. So that's why they call it. So the most deer in the peak of the rut is called the lockdown because so many times you'll see immature bucks, a year, maybe 2 years old. You'll see a bunch of yearlings.
But you won't see many does.
You won't see many mature does or big bucks.
But let's differentiate from tailgate talk. That's one of my new favorite terms, tailgate talk. Everybody, oh man, the rut's early this year. It's happening early. Tailgate talk, guys.
That's right.
You go to our website on Alabama Game and Fish, Outdoor Alabama. We do fetal studies throughout the whole state. We've done them since the deer were stocked in the state. We've got locations. You can pull the nearest location to you. Those fetal studies, we go, we harvest does with fawns in them, take them out, scale them. They will scale. When you scale them, whether they're the size of a mouse or a chihuahua, you scale them to the day.
That's right.
You can go back to the day that the rut was. We put those dates available out there for every hunter. You know what? Since the dates we stocked those, never has changed.
The only way you could change.
Yeah,
the only way you can change somewhat is if you have a very out of balance herd, which we used to have bad.
Which you would go later.
And you
breeding.
really pare down, and say you had a 10 or 12 doe per buck, which a lot of places in Alabama did, and all of a sudden you harvest, and you move that closer to 1-to-1 almost. You can move that rut up a little bit because I saw us do it actually.
But what causes that tailgate talk? Here's what happens. They feel more like rutting. If it's hot, you got one of those 75-degree days, that buck doesn't feel like chasing that doe.
Well, she's not moving at all.
And she's not moving.
Yeah.
If it's ice cold and they're frisky and running, they feel like rutting. Somebody sees that, they think, oh man, it's on. There's where the tailgate talk comes into.
Anecdotal.
It's weather related, but it's not. It's time induced.
Hey, it's a doe-to-doe thing.
Yes.
It's not a schedule.
How about that? And that's it. But most people, I'd bet you 90% of the people out there that hunt don't know that, Bob.
Yeah, I mean,
got one more for you,
It's hard to
Mr.
argue
Dan.
with the measement of a fetus.
Yes.
No
It's hard to
question
argue
that the weather will probably produce the. Although I will say, typically around here, and I've been saying it for years, you see most of the biggest deer die in the very end of that cycle.
That's right.
Because they have been pretty much they're experienced and they're used to being and finding a doe and being with one. And if they breed one, they're right there. Another one's, they've been having their nose,
Close.
following a doe close by for so long, and now they can't find one easily.
And they're gonna get on
and
the
they
foot.
move around a lot more for a little period of time. And plus they're kind of addled from not
That's
eating
right.
much and chasing. Right. So that very tail end is when I see them drop around here.
And then the effect of that they had, and Dr. Ditchkoff that y'all had on, had probably the best information on this. You run into, and I think most hunters don't know about it. And we may be running over, Bob. This is important stuff.
We can
It is post-rut mortality. Mm-hmm. And everybody said, well, how do I know what post-rut mortality is?
You find them dead.
You find a skull that has been antlers shed, but a skull of a fresh deer that has died buck, that's post-rut mortality. Mm-hmm. He couldn't overcome that drawing of his body down. Mm-hmm. Post-rut mortality is huge. And when we were figuring how many bucks we wanted to be able to take in the state and how many bucks should be taken off an area, you better be calculating post-rut mortality. You lose. You can't go,
right.
Hey, we've got a 50-50 balance. We're going to kill this many and this is going to be. That's not the way you figured. You got to put post-rut mortality into
the
it.
closer your deer get to, equal doe and buck, which is
the more
really
intense
tuned
it
up,
gets.
man, it's going to get worse and worse. Because I see we've lost deer when you can see them. A lot of times they're so beat up, or they've gotten infections from fighting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the saddest thing ever. One back behind the camp that year, and they were coming out from duck hunting, and there was a pretty nice buck just standing there.
Blinded.
Something's wrong. And they finally got up close and saw him. He was absolutely beat to death, infections everywhere, could barely stand. He could hear a little noise and spooked, and he stopped again. And upon closer inspection, both his eyes had been gored out. And when that happened, other bucks just took advantage of him and just beat him to death.
Well,
Mother Nature is rough.
You talking about Mother Nature being mean?
Oh, they're trying to kill each other.
You think if those coyotes get
it was so
like
sad
that.
to see, though. Oh,
Horrible.
my gosh.
Horrible.
Yeah.
I know we're running over, but I gotta have your opinion on one thing.
Go.
Everybody knows what's coming. Dudley know what's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think the moon phase affects deer movement?
You know what? That's an open-ended question that can have two right answers. My dad used to tell me when Ashley and when Tox and I was first having our first youngins, and my wife was pregnant, and my dad said she'll have that baby
On a full moon.
X day. And I said, how do you know that? He said, that's full moon. You look at, if you've ever had cows, whatnot, those waters and tides pulling. And that
It's actually true. I mean, I've
that's
talked to
true,
the clinic
yeah.
where we had ours at Amory as a baby place, a baby hospital. It's pretty famous. And you talk to the nurses, and they said, because
That's right.
all of ours were at a full moon. They said, get ready.
That's
we
right.
plan the activity and extra help around full moon. It is a real thing.
It is a real deal. So if that's affecting that, that's got to affect all wildlife. Mm-hmm. But moon phase of hunting or traveling or being able to see that deer and see in pitch black or he can see in partial or full light, that's not going to affect him. If he's hungry, he's going to eat.
That's right.
So, but does moon phase affect things? Look at the fishing, how it affects it. Mm-hmm. Yes, it affects wildlife, but there's two right answers for that question.
Nothing trumps weather.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it does probably, but nothing trumps weather.
Oh, no.
Yeah, hungry's hungry. Yeah.
He's like a politician down there. He just kind of,
It's because
Wait just a minute.
He literally has been a politician.
No, but the you know what? I've never been a scent guy, and Rick wears me out over there on the show about anytime somebody calls. Oh, Dan, you believe in scent? You know what I always thought it was? The best scent: wind direction, wind direction, wind direction. No scent. Mm-hmm. You control that. Look at what y'all have done with the clothing to help protect scent and whatnot. So again, let's get through the tailgate talk. Let's figure out what caused the tailgate talk. Then come up with the product or a way to help hunters with that. Most of the hunters I know is exactly what y'all are doing. You're giving them the answer to see that they've never had that. They're going to be better hunters when they know that, Bobby. Y'all are providing that with with these podcasts.
No, we're trying.
I mean,
we do our little part.
Honestly,
No, you are. No, you're not trying.
Every time we put one on, and I've learned something. Honestly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too.
What did you learn this time, Lanny?
Listening to, it kind of revisited the measurement of the weight of the fetus, you know, and how finite that is. So
you brought that up pretty quick. That's good.
Yeah. What?
Lanny, he is. It's really interesting. He's working on this place.
Watch your work. Watch it.
He's really gotten into food plots in the last couple of years. He's really gotten into burning. He's I don't know. He's on fire for all this.
I don't know about that. I mean, on fire.
You're definitely on fire now.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
The burning part, he's on fire.
I've learned a lot in the past. I've learned a lot of my whole life, but a whole lot in the last couple of years. That's for sure. So,
Bobby,
and it is all about the habitat. So.
When you're talking about food plots, and y'all are the masters of it. I mean, biologics food plot. That's what you think of when you say biologic, even though y'all have expanded it. But I see guys with food plots, and they never work on the edges, and they don't understand that plot is encroaching every year. And we go back every year or biannually with dicot and Roundup mixture and burn the edges down to keep that from encroaching. Do y'all talk about that?
We really hadn't talked about it, but you see it.
We talk about food plot edge a lot.
That's a whole different topic.
You lose acreage. You're losing acreage of planted crops because you're allowing encroachment.
Remember
on
our
food
lease that was south of here that we hunted for years? Mm-hmm. There was a couple fields that
they disappeared.
Monstrous water oaks had branches that were like 80 feet long sticking out into the fields, and we didn't want to trim them because we weren't sure what the landowner wanted to. But yes, talk about encroachment.
So that's a management deal that needs to be done to maximize food product production. You know, right?
Depends on your fields.
Yeah, but
it's a lot easier when you got mature timber around them. It's hard. You can trim the limbs, and that's about it, or you'll kill the trees. Right. But in a more open area,
yeah.
But a lot of
that
lean
out over them.
A lot of that is trees we may not necessarily want on the edge of a field that you can take out.
And we're trying to create transitional zones now too. You know, areas that of easier entry for them.
But if you got invasive species, let's say you got privet hedge where you can't see 1 foot in there,
you got to kill all
you
that
burn
stuff.
that back.
Yeah.
No, definitely fight the invasives.
Yeah.
Bobby just had that done.
Yes.
The magic of Mr. Greg Briggs.
Mr. Greg, he can do it now.
Made him disappear.
You get that man some diesel fuel, you better look out.
Yeah, that's right. He's something else. Well, I've really enjoyed sitting here talking with you guys.
Yeah, both of y'all.
Been
We appreciate
great.
y'all
It's
being
always
here.
good. Mark, I didn't realize you were the head guy at Grandview.
Well, yeah, that's what Dan said.
Head dude,
He was.
the head dude. Is that on your business card? Head dude?
He's very humble. He was.
That's good.
Was that big dog or head dude?
I love magazines. You know, we've got a magazine, and I know how much effort it takes to just get one done and mailed.
sir.
It's a lot of effort.
Absolutely.
And I hope they don't ever go away because there's something about
No,
holding
man,
a
they're
magazine.
coming back, baby. Yeah.
They are. I think they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Toxie, you got any?
No. Let's go hunting. It's cold outside.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, Mac, we got a lot to do. But it's been very interesting.
I will one plug right quick. We were talking about persimmons earlier and how they're the ultimate wildlife plant. We have we're short on a lot of stuff at the nursery, but we got an unbelievable crop of persimmons. So we're offering them in 6 and 12 and 18 tray packs. So check it out, nativenurseries.com.
Mixing some of those persimmons with other some select couple of oaks.
Oh, yeah.
killer tree plots.
Yeah, and I'll add
And it
to
is
this,
time to plant. The trees are falling, leaves
Yep.
are falling off the trees.
Yep.
Get them in the ground.
And one thing folks used to want to do is cut down all their male persimmons, or most of them. But we like to leave our male persimmons now because they attract so many insects. You go by a male persimmon when it's flowering, and it's
You can
it's
hear it buzzing.
humming,
Yeah,
and
it
you
literally
can-
is
Yeah, and
buzzing.
there's birds flying everywhere. Obviously turkeys can come eat all those bugs that fall out on the ground, and so yeah, keep the male persimmons.
There you go.
Save the males.
Plant some females. Go with
Look at you.
Amen.
Next time y'all come, you need to bring a trivia question and try to stump us. Now,
Oh, that'll be great.
Oh, God.
Absolutely.
Way to go,
Absolutely.
How could that be?
I
Supposed to
like
wait till
that.
they get here to tell them.
I like that.
all right, guys, it's been fun. Y'all, Dan Moultrie, you're just you're kind of an icon over
Yeah.
there.
No, it's been, again, and I was able to say it to a few of y'all last time. Greatest thing I ever did was getting involved with Mossy Oak. Great deal.
Well, thank you for that. But it's more than the business. It's been a friendship, and it spans time. I could go for many, many, many months or even a year maybe, and nothing changes. That's cool.
Yeah.
I've said that before.
That's the good
those
friends
are
right
lifetime.
there.
Yeah, that's the
right.
lifetime relationship.
That's right.
Even if it's one of my sayings around here is like, this is a different topic real quick, but I mean, the reason to have these great relationships in life and in business is not so that you never, I say it this way, it's not so that you never fight about anything or disagree. It's so you can.
That's
and
right.
it really doesn't matter
That's
because
exactly
it survives beyond that. It's more important than whether things fell your way or not that particular day.
Yeah.
And so
That's right.
Yep.
that's kind of been
There it
one
is.
of those great ones for us.
Well,
right
it's
here.
been fun to watch y'all.
It is.
See each other again. So, would you please tell your daughter Ashley we said hello?
And Miss Patty.
I will, absolutely. And she's always open to you calling for product, Bobby. I mean, you got
very
got
helpful.
y'all.
She treats me like a VIP.
Tossie, do y'all know that Bobby has a Bobby hotline?
I wonder
don't
where all
doubt
that
it.
stuff was coming from.
That's right.
He won't give me that either.
We need to get off.
Yeah.
This is running long. So.
He's got a magic chest in there, that's for sure.
Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Rob.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.